Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hobby Hussy. Today I'm going to be making this sculpted phone case. This is a dragon eye that I sculpted out of Super Sculpey. First I run a sheet of Super Sculpey through the pasta machine and get it flat, and then I cut it to the size that I want it. I'm using the phone case as a backing in this case. I'm using the phone case as a guide to get the size right, and I want it just inside the phone case. So I'm using a scalpel, and I'm cutting it to size. And here I am cutting out the camera hole for the case. You can't cover up the camera hole. And here I am smoothing it all back together. I'm rounding the edges where I can. And I think I've decided that it's just a little too wide, so I'm going to cut it off a little bit more. And still trimming to size. Still rounding edges. And tapering edges, that's also important, because you don't want to drop off on these edges. They catch on pockets and stuff. Still trimming up a little bit here. Still rounding, still tapering. Still rounding corners, still tapering. Especially around the harsh edges. And this is the dragon scale that I did, and unfortunately I forgot to hit record on the camera. So now I make an oblong kind of blob and stick it onto the phone case. And then I take a round stylus, a ball stylus, and kind of punch in a round canyon. Now I'm making the dragon's pupil, and it's slotted like this. So I just dig kind of a straight up and down hole. And then you do the grooves radiating out from the pupil. And you make it from the pupil to the outside of the eye. And this gives the eye a little bit more dimension that it would normally have, and it really makes a difference in the finished product. And I have to redo the pupil again just because it kind of loses its shape when you do the iris part. And now I'm going to paint the shadows in the dragon scales. And I do this with a very watered down brown paint. And I just kind of paint everywhere. And then I wipe off so that the paint will only go into the recessed part. And this is called a wash. And now I am painting the iris, and I've chosen a purple, and I kind of dab off the part on the height of the iris so that the purple remains in the depths of the iris. And now I'm painting with gold on the top parts of the iris. And the top part of the scales are gold as well. I have to be a little bit more careful and don't get into the grooves of the scales with the gold so I can keep my shadow effect going. And now I am going to paint the pupil, and I water down the black just a little bit so that it'll sink in there a little bit better. And let it dry. And then I put a glass cabochon onto the eyeball. And then I put an upper eyelid. And the purpose of this is to make an eyelid, but also to hold the glass cabochon down. And this is the lower eyelid. And you can shape these however you think a dragon's eyeball is shaped. This is kind of what I thought. And you can cut out a little bit more with a knife or with a tool and shape the eye how you want. And this is how I've chosen to shape it. But just keep sculpting. I think this is probably the most fun part for me. Shape it exactly how you want it. You can put wrinkles in there or anything you want. And this is what I do to kind of get a lizardy effect. I roll my tool on it. It's got some little crisscross patterns that look really cool. It looks very lizard-like. And now I'm putting his upper brow, I guess you call it. And it's very scaly and prickly looking anyway. And this is how I achieved that. And the same thing on the bottom. And I'm like closing this up to give it kind of a full circle around his eye. And take care of all the little details. And now I'm going to make a black wash because I'm going to wash the entire eye area in black. So you thin down some black paint and you have to use a decent brush. I'm using a flat here, but you need to get into all the cracks and crevices. And I'm painting everything except the glass cabochon. And if you get some paint on that, it's pretty easy to get off. I wait till it dries and kind of chip it off. But get into all the crevices. And I think I flip it up here and get into the sides a little better. See where I would have missed if I hadn't done that. But paint it all, let it dry, and then I'm doing a dry brush gold on top of it. And see how the black underneath kind of makes the gold kind of pop off of there? That was my intention there. And it works pretty well. But you use the dry brush and you kind of just go over the top. Don't try to get down into the crevices because that defeats the purpose. And now I'm going to put some green dry brush on there because no dragon is complete without some green metallic. I'm kind of lining his eyes to make them pop a little bit more. And you can choose whatever color you want. And I'm putting some green on the dragon scales as well, just to kind of bring it together. And I'm going to do a little bit of purple. On the scales and on her eye. I've changed sexes here. So I pop it off of the phone case and then clean the phone case up really well. And I should have popped it off the phone case a long time ago. But now that it's off the phone case, I mixed up some epoxy. And I am going to coat this whole thing with epoxy. And this gives it a very nice shine, but it also gives it some strength. And being as it is a phone case, you kind of need some strength here. Because if they drop it when it's just clay, it's probably going to shatter. Now I let the epoxy cure for 24 hours. Now I put some E6000 on it, and E6000 is because the phone case itself has a little bit of flex in it, and the E6000 is kind of a flexible adhesive, and it works pretty well at keeping that case on there. But spread it out, and then push it on there. Push your new sculpture on there. And then I kind of pin it down with those chip clips. I let it cure for 24 hours, and this is what it ends up like. I hope you've liked this video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.